This is Mediawatch. I'm Colin Peacock at RNZ in Wellington, and with me for this one at RNZ in Auckland, Hayden Donnell. Kia ora, Hayden.
Kia ora, Colin.
Now, this week's sort of ending on a more peaceful and positive note than it was perhaps 7 days ago when it got underway. Are you feeling that?
Yeah, Monday we were on the verge of World War III, and now it looks like there's peace in our time.
We'll look at how our media reflected that, not always in ways that didn't induce a bit of panic. The story no one really wanted to hear, the possibility of war breaking out in the Middle East this past week, or to be specific, more war. Israel's war with Gaza is, of course, still going on, coming up to 2 years of that now. And Israel and Iran, they've traded blows at times in the past, but the US bombing Iran and Israel and Iran launching bombardments of each other, that is definitely an escalation.
Good morning to you. It's 8 o'clock on today's show. US President Donald Trump says he wants to make Iran great again, suggesting he's backing regime change in Tehran.
In the next hour, we'll look at how effective those strikes are and what happens next.
That was Sky News in the UK reporting that breaking news there last weekend, but exactly what happened next, and indeed what had just happened, that wasn't all that clear once the missiles started flying. And even after they seemed to have stopped flying on Wednesday, there was one more F-bomb incoming.
We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
F is for fury as Trump unleashes on Israel and Iran for breaking his ceasefire.
It was 3 News at 6 p.m. last Wednesday night. Now, it wasn't just Trump's ceasefire, of course, and for a while it wasn't even clear if the firing really had ceased at all. It wasn't also clear if the targets in Iran had been obliterated, as Donald Trump had claimed, and there is a reason that they talk about the fog of war obscuring the truth in such circumstances, and it certainly wasn't any easier to work out any of that this week for our media from this distance. Hayden Donnell has been looking at how our media responded to this alarming escalation. So, Hayden, how did local media here respond once the US started bombing Iran on Sunday?
Mostly about hitting the big red button mark panic, really. Stuff's headline on Monday, the world is on fire. Have we reached World War III and what can we do? And that was later amended to just that quote from Helen Clark, the world is on fire. The Post's front page on Monday also led with that quote from Helen Clark, the world is on fire, in big print. And Newstalk ZB, they got the geopolitical analyst Geoffrey Miller on. They led with the headline, Geoffrey Miller, we could be on the brink of World War III. And here's how he put that in the interview.
What's your take? Was it the right decision to do what they've done?
No, it's madness. This could bring us on the brink of World War III, and we wait to see what Iran's response will be.
So really fair enough. I think Newstalk ZB, what do you think, Colin? That's an accurate headline.
Well, yeah, the key word there being could, I guess.
Could. The only thing with these, and it's an impossible problem, and I'm not making a criticism here, but I find sometimes when you read something in print, it just can't convey the tone. So a geopolitical analyst will say something like, we could be on the brink of World War III. And then in the headline it reads like, we could be on the brink of World War III, when you read it written down.
Yeah, Canterbury Morning's host John McDonald had a different take.
Well, he invoked 9/11. That was his first thought.
And when I heard about the attacks yesterday, first thing I thought about was 9/11, when the world was changed forever after the Al-Qaeda terror attacks. Why did they happen? What was the lesson that you think might have been learned from that Trump and his cronies might have learned? Well, the lesson 9/11 taught us was that the US and the Middle East don't mix.
In one sense, yeah, the headline's panic-inducing, but in another sense, it's a bit like the old thing of, sex, now that I've got your attention, the old comedy greeting card thing. And then, there is more subtlety from commentators like John McDonald or pundits like Geoffrey Miller.
Yeah, a lot of the discussion was actually quite considered. When you put these words like World War III in the headlines, that's the discussion point on social media. It was, I think Google ranked World War III as the top, it was the top most interest that it had ever recorded, basically, in terms of its search metrics at that time. So you can totally understand, just from an SEO perspective, search engine optimization perspective, why our media would be going with it. I do wonder, though, whether you have basically an amped up population that's really worried and you put that in the headline and it really adds to that.
With that social media aspect, I think it works two ways. One is they are sharing their content via social media, trying to get an audience there, so it has to have that attention-grabbing headline or presentation, but also, incoming, they're competing with it as well. So they're going to want to respond to a feeling that's out there if that is the sort of concerns and language people are using on social media media, they're going to want to reflect that. But I mean, it ought to be one of those moments where people seek out the reliable news media. Oh dear, there's a crisis, whether it's weather, conflict. Let's go to those reputable news sources where there's a better chance that I'm not going to have to sift through mistakes, misinformation, or misleading stuff.
But there is something very real underneath it. The US did bomb Iran. There is real concerns here. You can totally understand why people would be worried about World War III. But then also, as you say, it's this time where actually you really need to be as measured as possible to not panic people. Ryan Bridge on his early morning show on News Talk ZB, he interviewed Al Gillespie, and he was trying to talk people down a little bit. He had this to say.
Well, a couple of headlines, actually, I should be fair, this morning saying, World War III on the way. Bit overblown.
Completely. I mean, it's right to be concerned about any conflict, but this is not World War III. Russia and China are not tied by alliances to Iran, and they will not get militarily involved.
Also interesting, Al Gillespie did a lot of turns. Geoffrey Miller, who we've mentioned, this pretty small number of international relations pundits who've been used by the media here in New Zealand. On the economics of it, I've seen Brad Olsen on speed dial across the media as well. But when it comes to that, what it means for us here in New Zealand angle, the media's going to latch onto that, of course, or what it might mean. And discussion on that turned to something that really is an immediate hip pocket concern, petrol prices, right?
We have, on one hand, oh my gosh, World War III, which would inevitably have been nuclear Armageddon. And the first question in our media, what would that mean for our petrol prices? Will petrol get above $3 a litre? I just find that very, very New Zealand, right? I've always said that petrol prices have an absolute direct line to our psyche in a way that almost no other prices do, besides maybe butter right now. We had Lloyd Burr on Stuff, $3 plus petrol, how the Iran-Israel war could impact New Zealand's economy. You had The Post on Monday, brace for 30 cents a litre petrol price rise, and that had Stephen Hoadley of the University of Auckland saying, I've been telling everyone, fill up your tank now. And you had RNZ's money analyst Susan Edmonds being pressed on petrol prices on Midday Report on Monday, even as those World War III headlines were unfurling.
And I mean, for people who might be listening who have their car on empty at the moment, is it best to get out there and fill it up ASAP?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess maybe this is as low as petrol goes for a while. Yeah, I think it might be worth it.
Thank you so much.
But as it turns out, wrong! The following day, within 24 hours. These were the headlines.
This morning's Iranian strikes on Qatar and Iraq could be good news for petrol prices. Oil prices have collapsed this morning. The price of Brent crude falling almost 5% in less than 2 hours.
Yeah, and I heard Brad Olsen on News Talk ZB reflecting that the next day, 24 hours later, it's completely different, then trying to make the point that it's all to do with the Straits of Hormuz. If they get closed down, there could be a spike. But look, yeah, sure, people got found out by the turn of events 24 hours later, but there is a cost of living crisis on. Petrol is an unavoidable hip pocket cost for a lot of people. Not unfair for the media to focus on that.
It's probably fair enough, absolutely. It's just there's two strands going on at once. There's this very calamitous reporting about the potential, what would be a world-ending conflict if we really did have World War III and the nuclear powers got involved. And then the more realistic effect of it is actually, yes, maybe our petrol prices are going to go up. It's just kind of a funny thing about New Zealand. There's oscillating straight between the prospect of nuclear Armageddon to worrying about prices at the pump. And if we could find a way that World War III is going to impact Auckland house prices as well, I think we'd have the ultimate New Zealand news story.
I mean, to give him credit, Ryan Bridge on his Herald Now show was talking about this, saying that the $3 petrol, perhaps not the focus, because if the cost goes up, it flows right through the economy, and that was the point to dwell on, not when and at what price you fill up. So, yeah, fair play there. But while $3 petrol became a non-story within 24 hours, World War III possibly as well. I mean, the same just one day later, peace in the Middle East seemed to be the angle.
World War III Monday, and then on Tuesday we had Donald Trump on Truth Social. Congratulations to everyone. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire. One day on from bombing Iran, we're announcing that everything's going to be okay. Thank goodness that's fine. But then, within minutes of that Truth Social post,
Israel says at least 6 people have been killed and a number injured in the latest round of Iranian strikes, adding confusion to an apparent ceasefire agreement.
Oh no.
It was Al Jazeera, I think, reporting that development. Strikes from Israel, counter strikes from Iran still going on.